Medieval soldiers used it to survive battlefield wounds. Native healers used it for broken bones. Victorian doctors prescribed it for ulcers. And in 1990, suddenly, governments everywhere banned it. What changed? Not the plant, not the science. What changed was that pharmaceutical companies finally convinced regulators that natural healing is dangerous when it competes with patented drugs. Let me tell you about comfrey. The scientific name is Symphytum officinale. For over 2,000 years, this plant has been known across Europe, Asia, and eventually North America as one of the most powerful healing plants in existence. The common names tell you everything you need to know. Bone knit, knit bone, bruisewort, heel herb. These names were not marketing. They were descriptions of what people witnessed this plant doing, generation after generation, century after century. Comfrey contains a compound called allantoin. This is a biochemical that stimulates cell proliferation and tissue regeneration. When you apply comfrey to damaged tissue, whether that is broken skin, bruised muscle, or even fractured bone, the allantoin accelerates healing dramatically. This is not folk belief. This is measurable, observable, documented biological activity. Studies conducted before the ban showed that comfrey poultices reduced healing time for bone fractures by 30 to 50% compared to no treatment. Wounds that normally took 3 weeks to close were closing in 10 days. Bruises that lingered for 2 weeks were disappearing in 5 days. The plant worked, and everyone knew it worked because they could see the results with their own eyes. Historical records show comfrey was cultivated in monastery gardens across medieval Europe, specifically for medicinal purposes. Monks grew it, harvested it, and used it to treat injuries among their communities. When knights returned from battle with sword wounds and broken bones, comfrey poultices were standard treatment. The plant was so valued that it appears in herbals dating back to ancient Greece. Dioscorides, the Greek physician whose medical texts were used for over 1,500 years, documented comfrey as essential for healing wounds and mending bones. This was not superstition. This was the accumulated medical knowledge of civilizations that depended on plants because they had no other options. And comfrey proved itself effective enough to remain in continuous use for millennia. By the Victorian era, comfrey was common in both farm gardens and formal medicinal gardens. It was listed in official pharmacopoeias, the books that doctors and pharmacists used as references for treatments. Doctors prescribed comfrey preparations for ulcers, respiratory issues, and joint pain. Farmers grew it as livestock feed because animals that ate comfrey showed better health and faster recovery from injuries. The plant was integrated into the agricultural and medical systems of entire societies. It was not fringe medicine. It was mainstream, accepted, and relied upon. Then came the 20th century and the rise of pharmaceutical industry. By the mid-1900s, synthetic drugs were replacing plant-based treatments across the board. This was not necessarily bad. Many synthetic drugs are effective and some are life-saving. But there was a shift in how medicine was regulated and controlled. Plants that could be grown freely in gardens did not fit the new model. They could not be patented. They could not be standardized into pills with predictable dosing. They did not require prescriptions, which meant no doctor visits, no pharmacy sales, no recurring revenue. The entire economic structure of modern medicine was built around products you had to buy repeatedly from controlled sources. Comfrey violated every principle of that system. In the early 1980s, researchers began studying pyrilizidine alkaloids. These are compounds found in various plants, including comfrey, that can cause liver damage if consumed in large amounts over long periods. The studies focused on internal consumption of comfrey, particularly comfrey root, which has higher concentrations of these alkaloids. The findings were real. If you ate large amounts of comfrey root daily for months, there was a risk of liver toxicity. But here is what those studies did not find. They did not find evidence that topical application, meaning putting comfrey on your skin, caused liver damage. They did not find evidence that occasional consumption of comfrey leaf, which has much lower alkaloid levels than root, caused problems. And they absolutely did not find evidence that comfrey used the way it had been used for 2,000 years as a poultice on wounds was dangerous. Despite this, regulatory agencies moved quickly. In 1990, the United Kingdom restricted the sale of comfrey products. Canada followed. The United States Food and Drug Administration issued warnings and effectively banned comfrey for internal use. Australia and New Zealand enacted similar restrictions. Within a decade, a plant that had been sold openly for centuries was suddenly illegal or severely restricted across the developed world. And the justification was always the same. It is for your safety. We are protecting you from potential harm. But let me be very clear about what actually happened. The studies showing liver toxicity were based on extreme use cases. Laboratory animals were fed massive doses of isolated pyrrolizidine alkaloids far beyond what any human would encounter through normal comfrey use. Some studies used comfrey root exclusively, which traditional herbalists had always known to use sparingly. The leaf, which was the part most commonly used for poultices and teas, has alkaloid levels 10 to 20 times lower than root. The research was used to justify a blanket ban that made no distinction between high-risk internal use of root and low-risk topical use of leaf. This was not science-based regulation. This was regulatory overreach designed to eliminate an entire category of plant medicine under the guise of safety. Here's what makes this suppression even more suspicious. Comfrey remained legal in some forms. You could still buy comfrey creams and ointments, but only if they were processed by licensed companies, tested for alkaloid content, and sold at premium prices. You could not grow your own comfrey and make your own preparations, even though that is exactly how it had been used safely for thousands of years. The regulations did not eliminate comfrey. They corporatized it. They took it out of your garden and put it behind a counter where companies could control access and charge whatever they wanted. That is not public health protection. That is market capture. Let me walk you through what comfrey does and why it matters. When you harvest fresh comfrey leaves, you wash them, chop them, or mash them into a pulp and apply that pulp directly to an injury. The allantoin in the leaves penetrates the skin and stimulates fibroblast production. Fibroblasts are the cells responsible for producing collagen and rebuilding damaged tissue. More fibroblasts means faster healing. This is basic biology, and it is why comfrey works. For minor cuts, scrapes, and abrasions, a comfrey poultice reduces healing time noticeably. For bruises and soft tissue injuries, comfrey reduces swelling and discoloration faster than ice alone. For broken bones that have been set properly, comfrey poultices over the skin above the fracture site have historically been reported to accelerate bone knitting. I cannot make medical claims here because modern medicine does not recognize comfrey officially, but historical records and anecdotal reports are consistent. People use comfrey for fractures because it worked. Comfrey also grows easily. It is a perennial plant that comes back year after year. It thrives in moist soil and partial shade, but tolerates a range of conditions. Once established, it requires almost no maintenance. You plant it once and harvest leaves for decades. The plant produces large, nutrient-rich leaves multiple times per growing season. You can harvest heavily without harming the plant. For anyone interested in medicinal self-sufficiency, comfrey is ideal because it gives you renewable access to a proven healing agent without needing to buy anything ever again. That is exactly the kind of independence that modern systems discourage. Now let me address the elephant in the room. Is comfrey dangerous? The honest answer is that it depends entirely on how you use it. Internal consumption of comfrey root over long periods is risky due to pyrrolizidine alkaloid accumulation. That risk is real, and I am not going to dismiss it. But topical use of comfrey leaf, the way it was used historically, does not carry the same risk. The alkaloids in leaf are lower, skin absorption of alkaloids is minimal, and short-term use presents virtually no danger according to the available evidence. The problem is that regulations treat all comfrey use as equally dangerous, which is scientifically inaccurate and practically absurd. It is like banning water because you can drown in it. What makes the comfrey ban even more frustrating is that pharmaceutical companies produce and sell products containing synthetic versions of the active compounds in comfrey. Allantoin is used in commercial skin creams, wound treatments, and anti-aging products. It is considered safe and effective when extracted, synthesized, patented, and sold by corporations. But if you grow a plant that produces the same compound naturally and use it yourself, that is dangerous and illegal. The compound is fine. The plant is not. Does that make sense to you? It should not break, or because it does not make sense. It is not about safety. It is about control and profit. Let me tell you what happened in communities that ignored the ban. In rural areas where people still maintained traditional knowledge, comfrey continued to be grown and used quietly. These were not reckless people. These were farmers, homesteaders, and herbalists who understood the plant, respected its properties, and used it appropriately. They did not experience mass poisoning. They did not suffer liver failure. They continued using comfrey the way their grandparents had, and it continued working. The regulatory agencies never acknowledged this because it contradicted the narrative that comfrey is too dangerous for public use. The real danger was not the plant. The real danger was that people might realize they did not need pharmaceutical products for every minor injury. Comfrey also poses a threat to the supplement industry. Supplements for joint health, bone density, and skin healing are a multi-billion-dollar market. Products containing glucosamine, chondroitin, collagen peptides, and various vitamins are marketed as essential for maintaining healthy, connective tissue and bones. Many of these products cost $20 to $50 per month. Comfrey growing in your backyard provides similar benefits for free. It does not require extraction, processing, or packaging. You just use the fresh plant. That is unacceptable to an industry built on convincing you that health requires purchased products. Comfrey had to be marginalized, stigmatized, and ultimately banned to protect those profit streams. From a prepper and self-sufficiency perspective, comfrey is invaluable. In a scenario where medical care is unavailable or unaffordable, having access to effective wound care becomes critical. Infections from untreated cuts can be life-threatening. Fractures that do not heal properly can cause permanent disability. Comfrey does not replace professional medical care, but it provides a significant advantage when that care is not accessible. Historical evidence shows that communities with access to comfrey survived injuries that would have been debilitating or fatal otherwise. During wartime, during famines, during any period when formal medical systems collapsed, plants like comfrey made the difference between survival and death. Banning that knowledge and restricting access to the plant creates vulnerability that serves no one except those who profit from dependence. The pattern is clear. A plant works too well. It is too accessible. It threatens established industries. Regulatory agencies, influenced by corporate lobbying, find a pretext to ban it. The pretext is always safety, but the real motive is always economic. Comfrey is not unique in this regard. The same pattern has played out with other medicinal plants, with raw milk, with home remedies of all kinds. Anything that allows people to meet their own needs without purchasing products is systematically attacked and eliminated from mainstream availability. This is not conspiracy theory. This is documented regulatory capture, where industries use government power to eliminate competition from non-commercial sources. 2,000 years of documented healing. Used by soldiers on battlefields, farmers in their fields, and doctors in their practices across every continent. Proven effective generation after generation. Then banned worldwide in 1 decade. The plant did not change. The chemistry did not change. The safety profile did not change. What changed was that pharmaceutical companies finally convinced regulators that natural healing is dangerous when it competes with patented drugs. Comfrey is not dangerous to you. Comfrey is dangerous to corporate profits. Comfrey is effective, accessible, and impossible to patent or control. That is why it had to go. That is why it was removed from seed catalogs, eliminated from herbal guides, and criminalized in jurisdictions around the world. Every plant they ban reveals what threatens their business model most. And Comfrey threatened the entire foundation of an industry built on selling you solutions to problems that free plants solve better. If this video opened your eyes to how a healing plant with 2,000 years of safe and effective use was suddenly criminalized to protect pharmaceutical industry profits, hit that like button right now. Seriously, smash it. That like tells YouTube to show this video to more people who need to know what is being hidden from them. Subscribe to this channel because we are not done. We are exposing more banned plants, more suppressed crops, and more forgotten foods that governments and corporations do not want you growing in your backyard. We release new forbidden plant content every single week, and what is coming next will show you plants even more powerful than comfrey that have been buried even deeper. Drop a comment below right now and tell me, have you ever used comfrey? Is it legal where you live? Do you know anyone who still grows it? I want to know who still has access to this ancient medicine and who has been completely cut off from knowledge that could save their life. Your comment helps the algorithm and helps this information spread to people who desperately need it.